I stood in front of my own auto shop, a place I'd built with my own hands, watching my brother try to open the door with a key he shouldn't have had. It was 6 in the morning, and he thought I was still on vacation. My name is Marcus Feldman, I'm 44 years old, and I run an auto repair shop in a small town outside Nashville. This is a story about how my brother tried to sneak his way into my life's work. After my own family had spent 20 years treating me as the unambitious son, my parents always had a clear idea of who was successful in our family. My older brother Christian studied business, became a management consultant, wore suits, and talked about portfolios at Sunday dinner. I, on the other hand, decided at 17 to pursue an apprenticeship as an auto mechanic, something my parents called a shame, as if I'd wasted my life. Over more than 20 years, I slowly built a small but solid shop. I started with a rented garage and 2 lifts. Today I employ 8 workers and have an excellent reputation throughout the region, especially for restoring classic cars. My parents visited my shop exactly twice in 20 years. Christian, meanwhile, changed jobs every few years. Every consulting firm he worked for ended in a strategic restructuring, something my parents never questioned, even though it actually meant he'd been fired. Still, they always spoke proudly of his career, while my work was referred to as the trade, with an undertone implying it was worth less. 2 years ago, Christian lost his last consulting job for good and decided he wanted to try something practical. He started showing interest in my shop, not out of genuine interest in the work, but because he'd noticed I was financially successful. He asked if he could come on board, maybe as a partner. I politely declined, not out of spite, but because I knew Christian had no idea about mechanics and had also never learned how to run a business built on hard, honest work, not PowerPoint presentations. Instead, I offered to let him start as a regular employee and learn the trade from the ground up, the way I had. He refused, offended. I have a college degree, Marcus. I'm not starting as a basic mechanic. My parents got involved, as I'd expected. My mother called and said I shouldn't be so selfish and should give my brother a chance. He's going through a hard time, Marcus. You're doing so well. It wouldn't hurt you to share. As if I'd inherited the shop instead of building it over 20 years with my own hands and my own money. While Christian had never invested a single dollar or worked a single overtime hour, I kept declining. But I underestimated how far Christian would go. 3 months ago, I planned a 2-week vacation with my wife, our first big trip in years. I handed over shop management during that time to my longtime foreman Tim, whom I trusted completely. What I didn't know, before I left, Christian had visited our parents and convinced them to give him an old spare key they still had from an earlier shop renovation, from a time when they'd helped me with the remodel. Christian told them a story about wanting to organize a few things to surprise me when I got back, supposedly some new digital accounting software he wanted to implement. In reality, he was planning something completely different. While I was on vacation, he tried to get access to my business records to figure out how profitable the shop actually was, presumably hoping to later convince our parents to pressure me into a formal partnership. Based on family loyalty, Tim, my foreman, however, grew suspicious when a strange man, whom he only vaguely knew as the boss's brother, tried to gain access to the shop early in the morning, before regular business hours. Tim called me immediately, despite the time difference, while I was still in Portugal. I came back from vacation a day early, without telling anyone in my family. I set up a discreet surveillance camera at the back of the shop, in addition to my existing security system, and waited. The next morning, at 6 o'clock, I watched from my parked car as Christian tried to open the back door with the spare key, the one leading to my private office, where I keep all business records and financial reports. I got out of the car and walked straight up to him. He visibly startled when he saw me. Marcus. I just wanted, he stammered. Where did you get that key? I asked calmly. He finally admitted our parents had given it to him. I took the key from his hand and calmly explained that it should have been returned after the last remodel, something our parents had apparently forgotten. I called my parents that same day. You gave Christian a key to my shop without asking me, I said, my voice firm but calm. My mother immediately tried to downplay it. Marcus, he just wanted to help you. A surprise. You secretly gave someone access to my private property while I was on vacation. I cut her off. That's not family solidarity. That's a breach of trust. That same week, I changed every lock at the shop, at my own expense, and had a new digital access system installed that only worked with my personal code. I officially informed my parents that from now on, they would have no access and no copies of my keys. Christian tried to talk to me several times in the following weeks, claiming he'd only wanted to help and that I'd overreacted. I listened to his explanations, but I didn't change my decision. It took my parents months to understand that their behavior hadn't been harmless. It took a while before my mother finally wrote to me that they hadn't recognized the line and that she understood why I was upset. It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. Christian works for another company today. We talk occasionally, but the shop remains exclusively mine, with locks that only I control, and a trust I no longer blindly give to anyone just because they're family. That's my story. A key, a shop, and a brother who learned that respect doesn't automatically come with a last name.